Okay, welcome everybody. I wanted to jump on and talk a little bit about Texas. We've got the legislators in the House last night and spent a long time, hours and hours and hours to hear and then pass SB 2. SB 2 is not the same as HB 2. HB 2 was the House bill that was just the finance bill to engross the education spending, the education budget for Texas for last year. This year, they passed HB 3 earlier in the year. SB 2, Senate Bill 2, is what they heard for. Ian, I think you're muted, but do you know it was a long time that it lasted. I think they passed it ultimately around 3 a.m. local time.
Probably. I mean, I woke up to a text saying it happened, so it must, sometime in the middle of the night, apparently.
Right. Yeah, I want to say it was around 3 a.m. local time, and so they had a long day. I think because they passed HB 2 probably around 10 or 11 my time, and I'm 2 hours behind Texas. So I think that they were, so around noon. So it took them the better part of 12, 13, well, over 12 hours to pass it. There were over 15 amendments proposed. They were trying to stall it out, make it, try to kill it last minute, but that didn't work. I watched parts of it. Did you watch any of it, Ian?
No, I didn't. This all kind of just played out after my bedtime, so I just saw that text, and I'm, trying to fill in all the details today.
Right. Well, this makes 15, once it actually gets signed by the governor, 15 states that have universal school choice in the country. That's kind of it's a milestone in a way. I mean, it's a nice, it's a nice round number, but 15 and 2 of those, including Florida and Texas, are that's a big deal because Florida and Texas represent a large amount of students, the population there. So,
Yeah, what did
like
I see?
that,
Is it 40% of students now are in a state with a universal ESA? Is that right?
once Texas gets past it, it will be over 50%.
Wow.
Yeah, yeah. So that's a big deal. The curriculum providers, the companies like Pearson and other companies that produce curriculum, will go to um, departments of education in 4 states typically to decide what they're going to include in their curriculum. And of course, it's based on population because they want to sell more books than not, right?
Right.
So, Florida, Texas, New York, and California are the 4 states they go to. And 2 of those will have universal school choice once Texas jumps in. So it's a big deal. It's a
Yeah.
really big deal.
Yeah.
So
I
from
mean, it's kind of funny. It's it's obviously very exciting to reach that marker, but um, not to be the cynic or the wet blanket here, but with Texas now, I think probably it just about rounds out the victories that are there to be had for the time being, right? Um, maybe there's a couple really small big sky states or something, but
right, right,
the map as it is now, I think is probably where we're going to be for a little while.
yeah, that's a fair observation. To your point, there I think there will be a couple more. We'll get you know Idaho is on the cusp. There's a um, Wyoming already got there. So I think Idaho is close. We've got North Dakota and South Dakota that are real possibilities. But again, this is just to your point, right? That
Yeah,
um, these are smaller states population wise. Um, and yeah, I mean, big gains would really have to come just by definition. They would have to come in the larger population states that are left. And those that are left tend to be more blue. So,
right.
or at least purple, right?
Purple.
And
Yeah,
more difficult. Like Pennsylvania could be an interesting one. And there's a possibility there. I mean, they actually have something in the works that could make it, but again, does it make it past the governor's desk? I don't know. That
right.
seems unlikely, right?
Yeah, I mean, I guess that does seem very unlikely, at least for now. But where we look at opportunities for expanding the map in the future, I guess it probably is those three, what you might call blue wall, sort of, what became battleground states, the Michigan, Wisconsin, Pennsylvanias of the world.
Yeah. Yep.
Um, and it's not going to be easy, but I don't think anyone's satisfied with saying, well, we got 50%, so we can stop. So, I would imagine that's where the fight goes, and it's going to take several years, but
Yeah.
uh, we'll get there eventually.
Yeah, we'll get there. We've got other states that are close-ish. You could look at like South Carolina. Like there's something there that certainly potential. Um, uh, and then you go up the seaboard and you start getting less and less likely.
Yeah,
North Carolina, of course, already has it. You move north and you get into Virginia and then beyond, and it just looks a little bleak as you move up the coast. But um, I think you're right. I think we'll pick away at a couple more a year, maybe in the red um, Rocky Mountain states, Plain states. We'll get a couple here and there over the next few years, and then who knows? Who knows what could happen moving forward, and to cause the blue states or battleground states to move more towards school choice. You never know what could happen, but
right.
yeah, yeah. So
The other thing, and I've been sort of beating a dead horse on this matter, but we've got to be prepared to play some defense too. Not that these programs are going to be extinguished. That's not going to happen. But uh, you know, to me, it seems like one of two things is going to happen. Either ESAs are going to become more like charters, or charters are going to become more like ESAs.
Yeah,
And I think we need to fight vigorously to make sure that it is, in fact, charters becoming more like ESAs. Unfortunately,
yeah,
you see lawmakers pass these really expansive, what should be permissionless educational freedom packages, and then a year later they're talking about, they're using the old language of accountability, talking about test scores, and it makes me nervous.
right,
um, you can imagine the evolution here where it's required that all of these private schools that start or that participate in the ESA program need to administer the same standardized test. And then a couple years later, look at this school and their performance. We need to come in and close it down, or whatever the case might be. So, really, I think an enormous amount of vigilance is going to be required there.
yeah. I agree. So this is interesting to your point. Arizona uh, is, of course, a leader in school choice when it comes to universal programs. The ESA program has been amazing. It's grown by leaps and bounds over the past 4 years. 87,600 kids at last count enrolled. So it's a good program. It represents about uh, a third um, of what charter school enrollment looks like right now in the state, and
Yeah.
1 in 5 kids are enrolled in charter schools in Arizona. And so, all of that as background to then say our current Republican, keep that in mind, Republican superintendent of instruction is advocating for a change in the handbook for ESAs that would um, essentially just add a bunch of red tape and make it more difficult for parents to use the program in a way that benefits their kids. And so this is to your point that what's sad is you say we have to play defense. Yes, 100% we do. And unfortunately, in a lot of cases, it's against our own side.
Uh-huh.
I mean, we're having to run interference for school choice programs against supporters of school choice,
Right.
which is brutal. I mean, it shouldn't have to. That's not the way that should be. But um, it seems like the call for accountability is always it's definitely something that the right, the political right, um, loves to tout and show. Look, well, we're going to be fiscally responsible, and um, we're going to make sure that these programs are held accountable for the requirements that we put on them, which is a very conservative kind of mindset.
Hmm.
Um, and but the problem is that they take that mindset and they apply it to a program that was explicitly created to to not have all of those restrictions, to be
Right.
free of those restrictions. So yeah, you're right. And not only do we have to play defense against the people that want it dead, we also have to play defense against the people who passed it in the first place.
That's right. No, it's definitely true. I mean, one perhaps outside the box idea that I've had about this is, and I'll be honest, I don't know whether it's feasible or what it would require, but um, actually killing the Every Student Succeeds Act,
Mm,
which is the most recent iteration of the Elementary and Secondary Education Act. But this is how so-called accountability or test-based accountability is codified
yeah.
into every state. And so, if it was possible just to get rid of it, at least giving state lawmakers the reassurances that this you're not obligated to do anything on state testing, and quite frankly, this is not how we're going to be thinking about or operationalizing accountability moving forward.
Yeah, we have to get something in place, not just with lawmakers, but also with regulators. And regulators are harder to bring around to this, and so it may actually come down to getting it in statute to just head off the regulators. But you're right. That it does need to be codified so that um, so that we just make it as difficult as possible for them to make inroads in into a program that's supposed to be cordoned off.
Right.
Yeah, yeah, I agree. Um, well, real quick, I have some other thoughts. I want your feedback here on Texas, Ian.
Yeah.
So, just on background, real quick, we've got next steps for SB2 are so it already passed the Senate, of course. That moved over to the House. They passed it at about 3 a.m. local time today. It's next going to move just procedurally in the process. It'll move to conference where they need to basically reconcile the House bill with the Senate bill. And a much smaller group of people does that, thank goodness.
Hmm.
It won't have to go through everybody, but they'll get that figured out. Once everyone agrees on that, then it goes to the governor for signature. So that's just procedurally what'll happen. And then there's a good likelihood that he'll sign it within the next several days.
Yeah.
Um, of course, he'll sign it, but the timeline is in the next several days. Um, so this is the point I wanted to make. I saw a post from um, Robert Enlow this morning that says that Texas, upon getting the seal of approval from Governor Abbott, will have created the largest universal school choice program at inception, at the time of inception. So there are bigger ones now, of course,
Uh-huh.
but at inception, this will be the biggest one. That's a big deal.
Yeah. Yeah.
Um,
Definitely. I mean, and and again, I'm in terms of the granularities, and I wish I had the answer to this, but is every student immediately eligible in Texas, or are they phasing it in the way that you saw in like Utah, where they capped eligibility?
yeah, it's a means tested. Uh, I think they said 500% of poverty.
Okay. All right. So that's
So
pretty inclusive overall.
yeah, yeah, 500 is, yeah, of course better than 200
Yeah.
and so yeah, it's pretty inclusive. I expect, like a lot of us do, that with programs like this, that ultimately, hopefully, will be removed and that it
Yeah.
will just be truly universal. But it's pretty close. It gets the majority of the kids. Um, so that's cool.
Yeah.
Another just kind of note, Louisiana. I'm sure you saw the news out of Louisiana in the past couple of days. Um, and if you just stack that, what was it? It was 60 something thousand, 68,000 kids.
Yeah. What I say, 6%.
Yeah. Yep.
So I mean,
That's huge.
that's kind of in a good way, anomalous from what we've seen elsewhere, right? That seems like a really large and sudden influx into the program.
It's gigantic. 6% is unbelievable.
Yeah.
Any state, in any state, that would be like, wow, that's actually a really big deal.
Yeah, I mean,
So,
just hypothesizing, but one wonders whether it could have something to do with the fact that, in New Orleans, basically, there's no district system anymore, right? It's almost entirely charters.
yep.
So there is a culture of choosing there, perhaps that we didn't see in other places. And I don't know if I don't know if that had something to do with it, but you also kind of have the same thing in Arizona. So I don't know if that explains it.
Yep. Well, probably. That sounds right to me. Just from a intuitive standpoint, it makes sense that since they're kind of acclimated to being able to have an option and getting a choice in their education, that you present them another one that's even more expansive and gives them more opportunity. Um, they don't have like you said, the cultural barriers to overcome. They
Yeah,
just go for it. Yeah, I think you're probably right on that.
yeah, that could be it.
Very cool. So I just wanted to add that in as a um, kind of a second win that adds to the ongoing winning streak for school choice here
Yeah,
recently.
absolutely. I mean, I think that's a big deal actually, because yeah, I remember, at least in Arizona initially, that even though there was a robust interest and lots of students enrolling in the program, that uh, some of the people on the other side of the debate, especially pro-union people, saying that it didn't have the kind of popularity um, that those of us who were championing it were anticipating. But I mean, 6% that quickly, my God, I don't think
Yeah.
anyone's going to say that's disappointing. That's, you're talking about the beginning of a real and radical transformation. If you can get 6%
Yeah.
in one year, then what are we talking about a decade from now? That's huge.
It's a big deal. You've got 1 in 20 kids essentially that, even more than that, slightly more than that. But yeah, 1 in 20 kids signed up into the program, which is crazy. I mean, awesome,
Yeah.
amazing.
Yeah.
So yeah, I think you're right. I think it's probably a function of, at least in significant part, and it seems to me that it's probably because they're kind of already used to having that choice. And hey, here's another even better one. So that's
Yeah.
super cool. Um, the uh, what's been kind of fun to watch is a little bit of Schadenfreude this morning as the anti-school choice activists. I you could replace that with grifters. That's fine
Uh,
too. You can use them to kind of just melt down. They've just been watching them. I've been watching them melt down a little bit, as Texas passed SB2, uh, and yeah, there's
I mean, I guess if we can be gracious in our victory here, the one thing maybe we can say is Texas took a year or two longer than it should have, right? And maybe they played a role in that. But
hey, you know what? You're right. You're not wrong.
yeah,
Because really, Texas should have been done uh, years before now. And it took
yes.
a lot of work on the part of a lot of people to get that done, primarying rural Republicans and getting them out and getting people in that would actually vote in favor, which they did.
So the
So
so-called pastors for children in Texas, good job, folks.
we appreciate you. You held us off for 2 years, but
That's right.
really the families came out in full force, and their representatives did
Yeah,
as a representative
definitely.
here. So pretty cool. Just big news. I wanted to jump on and talk about that for a few minutes and get it out there. Um, I'm recording this, so we'll be able to post this as a podcast for
Yeah, cool.
EFI, and share it around. But anyway, just good news coming out of Texas. I thought it was worth 20 or 30 minutes to jump on and chat about it. I
Yeah,
appreciate
no, I
you
mean
getting on.
it is a real milestone moment. So
Yep.
absolutely.
Yeah. Yep. Lots of good things going on, and we'll see what the Dakotas do. They've still got time, and in this session, as well as um, Idaho, Pennsylvania. There was one other that I'm missing, but
Uh, yeah, I don't know. Between the Dakotas, we could move from 50% to 50.2% of students.
hey, hey, yeah, inching our way.
Yeah, that's
We'll
right.
take it.
It's a marathon, not a sprint.
That's right.
Yeah,
Cool. Well, thanks, Ian, for jumping
sure
on.
thing.
And we'll talk soon, I'm sure.
Catch you later.
All right. See ya.
Take care.